Hey everyone, welcome to the Credit Union Connection. I'm Sarah Snell Cooke, your host. This episode of the podcast is a little different. I'm joined by our very own managing editor, Wille, to talk about something people love, hate, love to hate, or completely misunderstand, and that's public relations. Here's the thing, most credit unions think PR is about sending out press releases or paying for awards that mean nothing. However, done right, PR builds brand recognition, establishes credibility, and positions your credit union as the expert voice in the market before a crisis forces you to figure it out. We're covering what good PR actually looks like versus the fluff that can waste your budget, why media relationships matter more than you think, and the biggest PR mistakes. Plus, William's going to share what actually gets our attention as editors and what lands straight to the spam filter. Let's connect with William. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Sarah Snell Cooke, your host here at the Credit Union Connection. And with me today is William. Wille, welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. Glad to be here.
And did you want to go by William or Will?
We'll go by Will. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too many syllables. Anyway, and Will, apparently I need to get him a background. This is our newish managing editor at the Credit Union Connection. Why don't you give a little bit of your background, because you have a little bit of credit union experience as well as PR, but tell us about yourself.
Sure thing. As you mentioned, I've been managing editor for Credit Union Connection here for a little while. And before that, I guess I could say I took about a 10-year detour from credit unions into medical associations and working for dermatology and dental. And prior to that, my big credit union experience where you and I had met was when I was with the Illinois League for 17 years. And when you were the publisher and editor-in-chief for Credit Union Times.
Yep.
And really, my whole career has been about public relations, strategic communications, working for mission-driven organizations. And early in my career, I worked for the Northern Illinois Food Bank here in the suburbs of Chicagoland. And as I got to thinking about it, credit unions have been part of my career, part of my life for quite a long time. And actually, my first job just occurred to me yesterday that my first auto loan was with a credit union. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what the name was or if they're still around.
Yeah,
But that
exactly.
was my first exposure to them. And ironically, then I came back around, worked for the league. And now, I guess I'll say 30 years later, I'm here with the Credit Union Connection.
Yes, you are. So one of the things that often came up at GAC, 3 different sessions at least this year, as well as been an issue for credit unions for 100 years, is telling their story, sharing their story. And obviously PR is a huge part of that. Talk to me about how you defined PR and what some of the tactics that comprise PR efforts.
Sure. To me, PR is part of your brand, the personality of your organization, and really how you're building trust with your community. And you can do that in a number of different ways through media relations, press releases, thought leadership, and executive visibility, and hopefully not too often, but crisis communications, and really what you're doing out in the community.
Yeah, for sure. And so what do you see as the value of PR in the credit union movement?
I know as far as long as I've been involved, it's always been the philosophy of people helping people. And really, credit unions have a lot going for them. They still do. And I'm getting reacclimated after having this little hiatus, but just telling their story and building trust with their community.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the thing is, and you mentioned PR, obviously a very important part of brand. Very few people know about credit unions. Credit unions have been around 100 years, and for 100 years, building that brand, sharing their story has been an issue. Less than a third of people know what a credit union truly is and what it can do for them, especially the younger generations. And how can credit unions maybe leverage PR as part of their brand to better share those stories?
Yeah, so I know when I was involved with credit unions and with the league that credit unions were often said to be the best kept secret. And I hope that now they're not so much of a secret, but really where PR comes into play is with telling their story. And we've always had that people helping people philosophy. But really, what does that mean? A philosophy is great, but how do they show that? How do they live it? And the great way to do that is through member testimonials and just peer to peer. This is how my credit union has helped me. And I know there's a time and a place for the CEO or another officer of the credit union to get out in front on PR and the camera if that's the situation. But really, that's where credit unions can really see a lot of mileage is what they're doing in their communities. And they're doing a great job of that and how they're really helping their members.
And you mentioned before, or a little bit earlier, that credit unions didn't focus on marketing. They want to get the rates out there, which, of course, brand is more your differentiator than your marketing. And anybody can win or lose the rate war, and it probably won't be credit unions because they just don't have the scale. But also, credit unions tend to only have a marketing person who does PR. It's not somebody who's actually typically trained so much in PR. So, what are some key pieces of advice that you might give to a young marketing person who now is tasked also with PR to be successful?
Just one, make it more of a priority and think about, okay, how can we leverage PR, knowing that what it is, in addition to getting their name out there with marketing promotions and not just announcing, hey, we hired a new staff person, not to downplay that, but again, really just getting into what their difference is. And even when I was still with the league, whatever that was 10 years ago, the bankers have really gotten hip to that too, because now you see them focusing on member service, getting out there a lot in the community, where that was always a real big differentiator for credit unions. But just find those different ways to really highlight what they're doing. And they're doing a lot of great stuff. And not only just being, I guess we'll say self-promotional, but really finding ways to get into the local conversation about financial needs, finances, and be a resource to local reporters. And I guess use that kind of loosely because I know at least where I am here in the Chicago suburbs, the local news landscape has changed tremendously. And so you might not always have a reporter, but just look for those opportunities to be a resource where financial services are concerned. And then that helps to build a relationship with the media that you do have. So then when a story comes around, a bigger story, that they'll think to call you to help them out.
Absolutely. Because one of the things that I always preach in my practice is that your story is not your story. It's a collection of your members, users, clients, whatever story. And so making sure that the member is the focus in the press releases versus the credit union just being a hero, because that's more focus on you versus them, the audience, and it's more relatable for them. And along those lines, do you have examples of work you've done in the past or ones that you've seen that you feel have been really good? And it doesn't have to be credit unions, but then if it's not, how can credit unions adapt that?
A couple of real good examples I can give is starting with credit unions. When I was with the league, we were celebrating 100 million memberships in the United States. If people think back and think about that, and what I did was put together a task force of staff and credit unions throughout the state of Illinois and just looked for those opportunities to tell the credit union story, not just, hey, we reached 100 million memberships. What does that mean? And so we developed templates for social media posts, the core messaging that really came out of it, and really providing avenues for people to really tell their story about how their credit union helped them. One of the cool things that came out of that too was that I don't want to say we invented it, but we put out a campaign that fall for shred days. And during about a 3-month period, there was, I think, about 100 different shred day events that happened. And that really got the community involved. And it just really showed again how credit unions are a resource that beyond the financial services. Hey, we're helping to protect your identity and getting into those kind of storylines too. The other types of stories that I can think of, I mentioned that I was with the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and where that organization was based and actually still based to that day is in relatively affluent areas in the Chicago suburbs. And it was always a interesting and fun, I guess I'll say, challenge to really tell the story about the hidden need of hunger. And I know that now homelessness has been more prevalent. People are more in tune with that, but at the time, and we're going back,
A little ways.
oh, yeah, a little ways. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So, and just people are driving around in nice cars. So like, what do you mean there's hungry people? Oh, my neighbors don't have enough to eat. And so just really, again, bringing out those stories, going to the front lines of the food pantries and finding people who would be willing to talk about it. And coming back around to credit unions, it's just the way that you think to tell your story and how you want to be known in your local community.
For sure. Yeah, it's what people say when you're not around, basically, just like a
Right.
personal brand. And you really got to think about and intentionally craft what you want people to think of you when they're when you're not around. And so, as we talked earlier, PR goes beyond the press release and crossing your fingers. But along the lines of press release, because that is pretty common among credit unions, as we get, hundreds at least a week.
Yep.
What do you find is the best way to structure a press release?
Just with the way the media landscape is right now, you want to make it as easy as possible for the person receiving the information and really catch their attention even quicker. We've gotten with smartphones and everything, all of us have such a short time span and attention span, and just really started with why should the readership care? Why should the reporter care to want to print this? And some of them are so limited in resources that if it sounds halfway decent, that they'll just do a copy paste. So, but you want to make sure that going back to PR school, you get the who, the what, the why, and get that all right up front, the most important piece, and carry it beyond just a basic announcement. Get quickly to the depth of the meaning of that.
Yeah.
And then also too, and I know that this from working for the Credit Union Connection, photos really help. That if you have a nice, high quality action photo that go along with it, you're just making that person's job that much easier and the likelihood of getting in a photo.
And a picture paints 1,000 words. It really
Mhm.
can. I was just going to ask about the importance of photos. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing I find too. A lot of PR practitioners are not including these days, and obviously there's member privacy and things like that you want to maintain. But getting a model release, simple as when they sign up to attend whatever your event is, if they're willing to do it, or you can always do it without names or blurring a face or whatever, but really getting those faces now happy, say kids are at a toy drive or the results of a toy drive when they're giving them out, that tells the story far better than any of us ever would.
Yep.
But yeah, J school, same thing. Journalism school, we who, what, when, where, why, how. And the who is not you. That's my thing. The who
Yep.
is not your credit union. It's the people that benefit from whatever it is that you are doing, opening a new branch, what have you. And so one of the things though I find, even having been a journalist and having now being a PR practitioner, what do you find is the best method for follow up without annoying the journalists?
That brings up a good point. And part of PR too is the relationship building and not just going to somebody, hey, we got this, can you print this? That you want to find ways to be in contact with them, even if it doesn't have to do with you, the credit union, that again, positioning yourself as the resource for them. But part of that comes with the relationship, and part of that is with the opportunity or the medium that you're using. If it's a pretty very newsworthy story, you would just want to make sure that I hate to give generalities, but sooner rather than later, it's a judgment. It used to be like you'd wait a couple of days, almost a week, but now by then that's way old news. Maybe within if it's an average article or story idea, maybe a couple of days and just follow up with them And probably nowadays, I don't know if a lot of people like talking on the phone, that, maybe drop them an email, or if you have their cell phone, drop them a text. People are on the go a lot, and just it makes it just easier for them to
Mhm.
respond back to you, and just, again, make it as easy as possible for them.
Absolutely. And to your point about who, what, when, and where, all at the beginning, the easier sell, making it easier for them is the easier sell too. When you say you've done a survey and 60% of Chicagoans, blah, 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 that's why that local paper cares, because you're addressing their I want to say members because I'm so used to cranes,
Yep.
their local residents. That's who the news media are trying to get. That is their audience, and that's who they're trying to get it out to. So yeah, I know I talked a lot. I feel like I talked, but I'm gonna let you leave us with your final thoughts. What would you like to leave our credit audience with?
I would just say make PR a priority for you and your credit union, and not just marketing. Hey, maybe that starts back with the credit union strategic plan. Hopefully, there's one that's in place, or not collecting too much dust, and look at it in terms of what are the communications priorities or pillars that came out of it. And with mission driven organizations and credit unions included, everybody gets so involved in the day to day and the deadlines and the promotion that they have to get out, but really take a step back and give it a more high level view of, okay, this is who we are. This is our brand. If we have a tagline, and how are the messages that we're putting out meeting our mission, and just giving it more of a global look, and not just being tactical all the time. So I would just say priority, and really giving it meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Will, for
Yeah.
your insights today. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks for having me.